Hey guys, today is something super exciting for you. It is your first look at the Stylize Unit from Boris FX. This pack is everything that is hot in video right now. You've got glitch effects, light leaks, camera shakes, rays, smear blurs, film glows, and what I'm going to be talking about today that I'm most excited about is Prism effects. And what's awesome about this pack, it is a one-time flat rate fee for all of these effects, and they come with Mocha Tracking. And if you don't know what that means, you're about to see. So like I said, I'm most excited about the Prism effects in this style pack. Personally, I love Prism effects. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, Jen, Final Cut already has Prism effects, but this Prism is so different. The Final Cut Prism effect is really limited. And as you're about to see, the Prism effects that come with the Stylize unit is unlimited. You can do so much with it. So today I'm going to show you my 3 favorite ways to apply the Prism effect in Final Cut. But this is just the start of what comes with the Stylize unit. So you should definitely check it out. I will link to it below, but hang out with me and see what I'm going to do with these Prism effects. So my first use for the Prism effect is adding a little more excitement to this impact shake. If you don't know how to manually create an impact shake like this on this type of shot, there's a tutorial I'm going to link to down below. It's not my tutorial, it's somebody else's, but they do an awesome job with it. But I'm going to turn it up a notch with the Prism effect from Boris. So I'm going to take that Prism effect and just drop it right onto my shot. Now you can see as soon as I drop on the Prism effect, you get a little bit of a prism edging around our shot. And just like all of the Continuum for FCP plugins from Boris, you do get this FX editor that comes with all of these pre-built Prism effects. But I'm going to custom build my own. So I'm not going to use this right now, but I did want to show it to you because it is cool and it can give you a lot of ideas about how to use this Prism effect. I'm just going to close that up. And now I want to show you something that's really stands out about this Prism effect right off the bat. If you'll remember the built-in Prism effect from Final Cut, you cannot change the Prism colors. But here, in the Boris version, you can change the colors of your Prism, which to me is such an important feature, and I love that Boris included that. I just think it's really important. So I'm going to change from the default here, from the blue, green, and red to a blue, yellow, and let's do like a hot pink. Now, like I said, I'm going to custom build my Prism effect using keyframes. So I'm going to cue up my playhead to right before the moment of impact, and I'm going to head down to mix. I'm going to add a keyframe and I'm going to make the mix 0. Now let's jump 1 frame so we're at the moment of impact. I'm going to raise that mix value all the way up to 100, thereby making a keyframe. Let's go back up in the inspector window and make some changes here. I'm going to change the smoothness to 6. I'm not going to keyframe it. I'm just going to leave it at 6 the entire time. For the scale start, let's add a keyframe. I'm going to make the start value a 92. And I'm going to leave the scale end at 98. I'm going to keyframe the offset start, and I'm going to leave the Y value at 0, but I'm going to make the X value 0.13. Now I'm going to jump to the next frame in my timeline, and let's play with these offset start values again. Let's make the X 0.16, and let's change the Y to, I don't know, 0.08. Give it a little bit more of an effect. And then in our timeline, let's jump 2 more frames, and then change those X and Y values on the offset back to 0. Let's crank the mix down to 0 as well. So that is how the shot looks with just the impact shake, and then here it is with the Prism effect. It definitely has a little bit more oomph. All right, let's move on to the next way I love to use this Prism effect. In this case, we're going to be applying it to an interview, and we're going to use it to help this name super really stand out on the background. So once again, I'm going to drop that Prism effect right onto my clip. Let's keep our playhead to 2 frames before the name super comes on. And let's head on up to our inspector window. On this one, I'm going to crank the smoothness all the way up to 100. Now on the center start, I'm going to make a keyframe there, leave the values at 0. And then down on the mix line, let's make a keyframe there and make the mix 0. Now let's jump 1 frame in our timeline. Let's crank that mix up to 100. And let's make that center start, I don't know, look like that. And let's jump to the end of our name super. Now the name super is fading out. I'm going to make keyframes again on center start and mix. Now I'm going to jump 6 frames in my timeline, and we're going to make that center start value on the X 0, making another keyframe, and we're going to dial down the mix to 0 as well. I'm sure you're confused, right? Why would we apply the prism effect over our interview subject? That doesn't make sense. This is where Mocha Tracking comes in. If you're not familiar with Boris's Mocha Tracker, you are in for a treat, because this Mocha Tracker is not like the object tracker that is in Final Cut, where you can attach something to an object and have it move around the frame. The Mocha Tracking is actually a planar tracker, meaning that you can track around shapes, and as those shapes move, the mask moves with them. So let me show you how it works. So the first step would be to just section out the part of the clip that we need to track. So you can see I've cut out just before my keyframes start and after they're done. Let me close that back up. We're going to head to the inspector and hit this button here that says Mocha Mask, and you're going to get a new pop-up window. I'm going to queue up my playhead in the Mocha window to about the center of my clip, and then I'm going to reach up here for this magnetic pen tool, and I'm going to use this tool to cut around my subject. While I'm cutting out this interview subject, if you guys think this is really cool and you want to see more videos like this, let me know by giving me a thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button, and ring the bell. Okay, once we've closed up our mask, you get these really cool blue handles. If you need to do any fine tuning at this point, you can just grab these little lighter blue squares and make modifications, but to me it looks pretty good. I'm gonna head over to the left side of this pop-up window and hit the track button. We're gonna track right, and we're just gonna wait. All right, now that we're done tracking right, I'm gonna queue up the playhead in the Mocha window to our start point, and we're gonna track left. I always like to start tracking from the center of my clip. I feel like it reduces the amount of drift you might get over the duration of your clip. And I would also recommend not tracking anything that you don't have to. That's why we sectioned out just the part of our clip that had the prism effect applied to it. All right, now we're gonna hit this button here to save this, and we're gonna close out of that window. And now you can see that kind of the opposite of what we wanted has happened here. Our prism effect has been applied to our subject instead of the surrounding area, but we can easily fix that. Just select our clip in our timeline, head to Pixel Chooser, Mocha, drop down on Mask, and we're going to invert this mask. And there you go. If you feel like you need to, you can pump up the feather just a hair. Give yourself a little bit of breathing room. And there you go, guys. That is our second look. It definitely helps the text stand out among the background. It gives a little bit of like, wow, like how did they do that? And I just think in the right situation for the right client, this is a great effect. All right, let me show you my third favorite way to use the prism effect, and that is over text. All right, here is some basic text. I'm gonna drag that prism effect right onto this. I'm gonna reduce the smoothness to 48 on this. I'm gonna leave the weight at 100. Let's change these colors this time to like a teal and maybe a blue. And how about also a like magenta? Let's keep our playhead to the beginning of our project. On the offset start, I'm gonna create a keyframe. I'm gonna leave the X at 0, but let's crank up this Y to about there. And let's make a keyframe on the offset end. And let's go the opposite way. Let's crank down the fall off to -100. We don't need to make a keyframe there. And let's add a keyframe on the mix at 100. Now let's jump 10 frames in our timeline by holding down the shift key and hitting the right arrow. And let's change those offset start and end values each to 0, thereby adding keyframes. Let's add a keyframe on mix to make sure we keep that one at 100. Then let's jump 1 frame in our timeline and reduce that mix down to 0. From here, I like to jump about 20 frames in my timeline. Let's add another keyframe on the mix line so it stays at 0. Let's jump 1 more frame in our timeline, and let's make keyframes on both the offset start and end lines, but leave those values at 0. Now let's change the mix value to 100, and then let's jump 3 more frames in our timeline. Let's have the offset start go to a -0.05 and the offset end on the X value go to +0.05. Then let's jump 5 more frames in our timeline. Let's make those values back to 0 and add a manual keyframe on the mix, and then just jump 1 more frame in our timeline and reduce that mix down to 0. And then just to finish it off, I like to add a very quick cross dissolve at the very beginning of the text effect so it just kind of fades in. There's so many ways to apply this prism effect on text in Final Cut, and I really love that you can control the colors of your prism, dial down the smoothness, and have your text still look really sharp, but with these like color gradiated echoes. To me, it is such an awesome feature that does not come with the basic version of Final Cut. If you guys want to check out the Stylize Unit from Boris, of course, I'll link to it below. And if you want to try Mocha Tracking, Boris does offer a free effect called Looks. I did a whole dedicated video about it that I will also link to below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I picked out some other videos I know you're gonna love, and I'll see you again.